Sometimes to really get the big picture, you've got to zoom in, like way in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at a bunch of headlines from just a single week and see if we can piece together the hidden story of where our world is actually headed. All right, let's get into it.
So everything we're about to talk about, a huge policy shift in Washington, D.C., a record-shattering deal in Silicon Valley, even what's happening in the beer aisle at your local supermarket, get this, it all went down in the exact same 7-day span.
Taken by themselves, they're just noise, right? But when you start connecting them, they tell this fascinating and honestly deeply contradictory story about our economy, our technology, and our future. So what is that story?
Well, our story kicks off not with some big explosion, but with a number. Just a number on a piece of paper. A policy change that sent these immediate shockwaves all around the globe.
$100,000. This is the number that started it all. So on a Friday, the Trump administration announced that this would be the new fee for a very specific and incredibly important kind of work visa.
We're talking about the H-1B visa. Now, this thing is basically the lifeblood for Silicon Valley and other tech hubs. It's how they hire highly skilled professionals from all over the world. The fee? It used to be just a few $1,000s, jumping to $100,000 for every single new applicant. That's not a change, that's a seismic shift.
And this policy, it has an immediate, almost laser-focused effect. Look at this. Over 70% of H-1B visas last year went to people from India. So what this really means is it's not just a U.S. policy. It's a global economic event with a very clear bullseye.
And the reaction was instantaneous. The very next Monday, thousands and thousands of miles away, the Nifty IT index, which is what tracks India's biggest tech companies, it dropped almost 3%. The first domino had officially fallen.
Okay, but here's where the story gets really complicated. Because in the very same week that a key pipeline for tech talent was squeezed shut, the industry that it feeds was just being flooded with an almost unimaginable amount of cash.
So we go from 100,000 to 100 billion. In the same week, another number completely dominates the headlines, and this one is literally 1,000,000 times larger. Chipmaker Nvidia announced this absolutely monumental partnership with OpenAI. And the plan? To pour up to $100 billion into building the next generation of data centers. The engine rooms for the entire artificial intelligence revolution.
And this quote just brilliantly lays out the contradiction we're talking about. The CEO of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, he said this on the day the deal was announced. He's talking about the need for talent, he's talking about the H-1B visa, making it crystal clear that this $100 billion future he's building depends on the exact same global talent that the new policy makes so much harder to get.
And at the same time, this powerful counter-narrative pops up. A group of top scientists, we're talking 10 Nobel Prize winners and the so-called godfathers of AI, they put out this urgent call for binding international limits on AI, citing these catastrophic risks. So you have the industry slamming on the accelerator, just as the world's top experts are screaming for them to hit the brakes.
Now let's pull back and look at the wider economy, because the contradictions just keep getting starker. On the surface, things looked absolutely incredible.
So in that same week, all the major U.S. stock indexes hit brand new all-time highs. The party on Wall Street was in full swing, helped along by the Federal Reserve, which had just cut its benchmark interest rate, making money cheaper.
But behind those record highs, a totally different story was unfolding. This warning also came out that week, and it paints a really grim picture of the average person's finances. And this is the central puzzle, right? How can markets be soaring to the moon if everyday consumers are completely tapped out?
This number helps explain it. Also, during that week, the price of a single ounce of gold hit a new record, smashing right past $3,700.
So why does this matter? Well, gold is what's called a safe haven asset. Investors don't rush to it when they're feeling optimistic. They flock to it when they're scared. For gold to be up over 40% for the year, while stocks are also at record highs, that signals some deep anxiety and uncertainty just bubbling right beneath the surface. And this tension between the big headline numbers and the reality on the ground, it isn't just some abstract economic idea. You could actually see it playing out in real time with brands you see every day.
Let's talk about beer. Michelob Ultra became the new best-selling beer in America, knocking Modelo Especial off the top spot. But the reason Modelo's brewer gave is what's so telling.
They pointed to weaker demand specifically from Hispanic consumers, saying that Trump's immigration policies were hurting their spending power. That's a direct line from a policy in Washington, D.C., all the way to the checkout aisle.
This whole split forced companies onto completely different paths. On one hand, you've got Nike betting big on growth, launching this high-profile collab with Kim Kardashian's Skims to try and capture those scarce consumer dollars. And on the other hand, you have Spirit Airlines, basically in survival mode, furloughing a third of its flight attendants just to cut costs. It's two companies in the same economy, in the same week, living in totally different realities.
So, after a week of these dizzying, contradictory signals, what does it all mean? Let's try to connect these dots one last time.
What we saw in just 7 days was a series of powerful forces all pulling in opposite directions. You've got a government policy choking off the flow of human talent while corporate giants pour billions into artificial talent. You've got an economy celebrating record wealth on paper while the average person is really struggling. And then you have all these brands caught in the crossfire, just scrambling to figure out what to do.
It all leaves us with this one fundamental question. This single week really feels like a snapshot of a much bigger shift that's happening. It's a world of unbelievable technological acceleration happening right alongside deep economic anxiety and political friction. And in that world, who's really set up to win and who is most likely to be left behind?